Hey guys, so real quick before we jump into the big excitement, I'm actually super excited for this weekend. But there were some technical issues with internet connection, so at times there's part where, uh, because it was recorded from my computer, I can't really cut out. But there are times where the person we're sitting down with does cut out a bit. So I'm sorry if that happens. It's something that we couldn't really control or. It is what it is, but yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys a heads up. So if there's bouts of silence, it's not because no one's talking, it's because the internet sucks. It's a curse. But yeah, I'm so excited. I hope you guys enjoy, and join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, check out all my friends and all that dumb shit, and yeah, I'll see you all in a couple of seconds, but have fun, enjoy the video, guys, okay? Hello, and welcome to the most jank deck profile I've ever done. Kingto, would you like to introduce yourself and the deck?
Yes. Hello. My name is Kingto, aka Mr. Ignister. On the Desperate Oak Discord is what I usually go by. In case you can't tell by the name and my incredible Matt here, I'm going to be going over Ignisters today. One of the most amazing decks ever. And Lightning Overdrive just pushes them to such an extreme, oh my god, why did they give us the support?
Yeah, so I think you and I have been in agreement that Ignisters are genuinely a very good deck, and they've always been a pretty good, rogue contender. They just haven't gotten the recognition that they deserve. And with the new Lightning Overdrive set, and the fact that they're about to start getting that recognition, we'd like to take a more in-depth look at the deck, especially from someone who I personally consider the best Ignister player. So,
I appreciate that. I have been playing it since Ignition Assault, so if anyone thinks that I've just picked this up because of the forfeit videos, no, I've been doing this since the beginning.
I can also confirm that because we went to the quote-unquote sneak peek for Ignition Assault. Which, ended up not being a sneak peek, but that's neither here nor there.
I've been really liking these guys since the beginning. Early combos weren't the best, that's why they didn't show up too much. But now they're going to show up, so like it or not, at the upcoming YCS in July, you're going to see this deck, so it might be a good idea to either the combos to pick it up yourself, or to know when to actually stop it.
So today, the day that this video is being released, we're just going over the deck profile, and then tomorrow we're going to take a look at combos, combo lines, and kind of how to place around some key hand traps that you will run into. And then Sunday is going to be a remote duel, Ignisters versus whatever shenanigans I can pull up. So without further ado, if you want to go ahead and jump into the main deck, we'll take a look at. I'm assuming we're going to do monsters first.
I'll start with just the basic Ignister monster core, and I'll explain different numbers, different variations you can use as I go.
Go for it.
So, first things first, I'm going to run these three Achichi. Achichi is the Stratos of the deck. It searches any Ignister monster on summon. Its graveyard effect doesn't come up much. Basically, if Cyber's monster battles an opponent's monster, you can banish a Chi-Chi from your grave to destroy your monster during damage calculation. So if you really want to just avoid some battle damage, you can use that graveyard effect. But the main reason you're running 3 Chi-Chi is because of it being a Stratos. It's also a very pretty secret rare. I don't know if my camera will pick it up. Kind of. But yeah, extremely pretty card.
If not, I will find a flat PNG of the card and write the word secret rare on it.
Hey, whatever works.
As this card is one of the one-card combos, it is like a mandatory 3-of. Like this and Picari are both mandatory 3-ofs, right?
And speaking of, here she is? I don't know. I've always gotten the idea that Picari is female. I'm not sure why.
Is it because of the hat?
Anyways, it might be because of the hat. I mean, it's just a good-ass hat. And, yeah. Anyways, Picari. Picari is your spell and trap searcher. On summon, it can search any AI spell or trap. Also, just to clarify ahead of time, for the rest of this profile, I'm going to be referring to the traps as I, whatever the word after it is, instead of AI. The entire spell and traps of this archetype are based off of puns.
As they should be.
Yeah. Picari searches any of your AI spells or traps. Also, like all the other Ignisters, has a secondary effect. Field, you can target any other ad Ignister monster and it becomes level 4. This doesn't come up much, but if you really need to make Light Dragon, which I'll get to later, it's the one card not featured on this map, sadly. It's really good in a pinch.
Oh wow, I'm actually just noticing that Light Dragon isn't there.
Yeah, even though it was the cover card of the set. I don't know why.
Oh, Light Dragon! Yeah, Light Dragon was the cover card. Man, Ignition Assault was a set.
Yeah, it's really confusing. Yeah, it was a set. The next card, some people run at 1 in their list, some people run at 2. I prefer to run it at 3. This is Doyan at Ignister. Level 4, Dark. You use this in Picari to go into Dragon, but like I said, that's why Picari has the other effect. Doyan is the best recycler archetype that I've ever seen. Basically, when this card is summoned, you can add any ad Ignister monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So that can be your Chi-Chis, your Picaris, any of your extra deck cards. It's insane recycling. But that's not even the best part. When it's sent to grave as link material for any Cyberse Link monster, you can also add an AI spell or trap from your graveyard back to your hand. So not only does it recycle your monsters, it also recycles your amazing spells and traps. Well, spells, the traps aren't good, but your amazing spells that I'll get to later. So I like to run it at 3 because of that recycling. Because, like, you're recovering usually 2 cards whenever you summon this card. Recovering will immediately allow you to pop off on later turns. So that's why I like using it as a 3 of.
But depending on the build, you can run it at 2, right?
Yes, just because on its own, it doesn't really start your combos. It usually requires your Chi-Chi or your Picari. But in general, like, it's not that bad to draw multiples of. There's a really stupid combo that I'll go over later where all it takes is 2 Doyons and you end on a 53k access code talker. So it's pretty useful. One of the one-ofs of this deck, Bururu at Ignister. Level 3 tuner, helps you get into Wind Pegasus over here, which is a level 7 synchro. If this card is summoned, I mentioned this earlier, all the Ignister effects are hard once per turn, so you can't, like, loop Doyons into adding back other cards and more adding. Anyways, Baruru's effect is on summon, it can send any ad Ignister from your deck to the grave. The next card that I'll show you is the one that you'll typically send, but essentially it can also help you search for your missing combo pieces. So say that you have Bururu and Doyan in hand. This is why I run Doyan at 3. You summon Bururu, send a Chi-Chi, do island shenanigans that I'll show you later, summon Doyan, add that Chi-Chi back to your hand, and boom, you have your Stratos available. So it's very versatile. It's also searchable through some of the extra deck monsters that I'll get to later, so that's why you only need 1. And its other effect is that if it's used for the synchro summon of a Cyberse monster, you can special summon back one of the materials used for that synchro summon. So say you use Bururu and Doyan to synchro summon. When they go off to grave, activate Bururu's effect, bring Doyan back. Now, if you haven't activated the on-summon effects of your monster yet, that does trigger it. So, if you summon monsters and their effects are negated somehow, some of the cards in the extra deck do negate the effects, then use Bururu to make it synchro summon, bring back the card, you gain its effects. So Bururu, very versatile. You don't run many synchros, so that's why you only need 1. And it's searchable, so one is all you really need.
card can just do a lot for how
Next,
small it is.
really insane all the different things you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Up is the card from Lightning Overdrive, well, one of the cards from Lightning Overdrive, that really actually justifies sitting on arrival and passing. Here we have Danmari at Ignister. Now, this card... Hello, sorry about that cut. Computer sucks. Anyways, here we have the card that really helps this archetype from... cards that helps it from Lightning Overdrive, Danmari at Ignister. Now, this card is pretty unassuming. I mean, it's a level 6, so you'll have to tribute summon it to summon it. It does have an effect to get it on field. If an Ignister monster battles an opponent's monster, be it like your opponent targets your Ignister monster, or your Ignister monster targets an opponent's monster for an attack, you can negate the attack and then special summon Danmari from hand. But that is not why you run this card. You run this card because of good old Baruru over here being able to send it to grave. Because if Danmari is on the field or in the grave, and you control a Link 6 monster, which the only one that exists right now is the Arrival Cyber's at Ignister. You can banish it from either the field or the graveyard, wherever it is, and negate the effects of any face-up card on the field as a quick effect. So basically, this allows your Towers monster, which is pretty much what Ignister players were ending on more or less, just saying on arrival and passing, allows it to act as an Omni Negate.
In Omni Negate, Towers is kind of the best thing to be ending on. So now that Ad Ignisters have access to that, they really are going to start seeing a lot more play at tournaments.
Nice, because now Baruru has a card that's actually good to send to grave. Before this set, you normally just used it to send like Doyon or something to revive later.
Mm-hmm.
It can actually send Danmari. Baruru has a lot more versatility in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Up is a card I run at 2. This card can be run at 3, it can be run at 2, it can be run at 1. It really just depends on what you want to do with the deck. And it is Hiyari at Ignister. This is a level 1, so one of the first level 1s. If you control any Ad Ignister monster, it special summons itself for free. So it's just a free extender. That alone is really nice. It being level 1 means that you can turn it into a Link Karibo or a Lingaribo. Normally you don't. But its secondary effect is what gets interesting. You can tribute one other Cyberse monster you control to add one level... Is it level 5 or higher?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, level 5 or higher. Add Ignister monster from your deck to your hand. It becomes level 4 until the end of the turn. Additionally, if you tribute a Link monster activate that effect, you can add one Eyes Ritual from your deck to your hand. That secondary part isn't used often unless you're doing a ritual build, which is actually valid for once, which is an incredible statement to say.
In the early days of this deck, the ritual was bad.
Yeah, it was not good whatsoever. Some people did experiment with it. I was never a fan until the new support, and I could see its use. I still don't run it anymore. I had some experiences with it that kind of turned me off from it, so I'm just sticking with the non-ritual build.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that this can replace any Ad Ignister well, not even Ad Ignister monster, any Cyberse monster, with the next card I'm going to show you is really nice, especially since it's just a free special summon.
Mm-hmm.
I will mention that there's another card with a very similar effect called Doshin at Ignister. I actually have it on the side over here in preparation for this.
Because you have every Ad Ignister that has been printed.
But yeah, this is Doshin. Also a level 1. This one is Earth. Has the same special summon extension effect. But its secondary effect isn't as good. If you have a Link in your grave, you can put it back into your extra deck to add an I Love Fusion from your deck to your hand. The puns, I Love Fusion. But the fusion isn't good, so that's why you really don't want to run this, and if you're looking for a free extender, go with Hiyari.
Mm-hmm.
And this next card is what you will typically add with Hiyari or Hard Draw. So you don't really want to run multiples because this can become dead in hand if you run more than one. Here we have Gachiri at Ignister, aka the guy with the giant shield. This is a level 8, but a very easy special summon. It also has 3,000 defense, so extremely difficult to just attack over. I use this in BFD format. My opponent literally couldn't attack over with BFD. But yeah, basically, once per turn, if you control any Cyberse monster, you can negate its effects, and if you do, special summon Gachiri from hand. So very simple summoning requirement. You can just negate the effects of something you're about to link off into something else, so it doesn't really matter. Its other effects are pretty interesting. If you control it, once per turn, the first time a Cyberse monster would be destroyed by card effects, it is not destroyed. So it adds a bit of extra protection there, but that's not really why you want to run it. The main reason you want to run it is a really stupid effect that you've probably seen in a couple other vids. Like, it's been used in even Code Talker decks, which is funny to me because AI Playmaker, anime shenanigans.
Yeah.
But when this card is sent to the graveyard, it can be by battle, by card effect, by link summon. You can target one other monster you control. The monster is unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of your opponent's next turn. Then, if this card is used for the link summon of any card, it can turn that card into a towers. So the normal end board usually has you on at least 1 or 2 towers at the same time.
Multiple towers in one board is just disgustingly dangerous.
And it's searchable through Hiyari, it's searchable through a other card that I'm going to show later. But yeah, just really useful, and it does a really good job of rounding out the monster lineup.
Mm-hmm. Spells, or you run traps in here, because you run Imperm.
Yes, but I'd consider that more of a hand trap than a trap, to be honest.
That's true.
Now I'd like to move on to the specifically AI spells and traps. Spells. All except one of the traps actually works during outside of the battle phase. The rest of them just rely on battle, which really sucks. However, the one that doesn't rely on the battle phase is actually in my side deck over here to the side. It's just off screen over there. Spell is pretty expensive right now. Last I checked, it was up to like 30 or 40 bucks, which is, but also for a secret rare that really like breaks the deck, it's pretty necessary. Ignister Island.
There it is.
A card that allows Ignisters to do everything they do. Control no monsters in your main monster zone. And 1 level 4 or lower add Ignister monster from your hand. For the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters with that same attribute by this effect. Say you control no monsters in your main monster zone. Chi from hand. And you link that off for some link 1, and now your main monster zone is free again. Now you can just go ahead and special summon a Bakari for free because it's light while a Chi-Chi is fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically how the deck operates. Constantly free up your main monster zones, constantly special summon. It's incredibly stupid, but God, I love it so much. And now you might be thinking, well, what if your opponent just hits it with a Twin Twisters or P in 2021? Well, you see, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 Ad Ignister monster, and if you do, set this card back to your field. So yeah, it has built-in recycling as well for no good reason. No, not sure why. It just does.
Yeah.
Now, a new card in this deck, also given to us in Lightning Overdrive, that I'll get to later, it makes it so you only really have to run 1. However, if that card gets hit with an Ash, or an Imperm, or a Veiler, you'll be pretty sunk, so that's why I run 3 of these, just in case, and I also run a copy of Terraforming. 4 copies of the field spell work really nicely. It can also lead to some really funny shenanigans with a card that I'll show later. It's in trap, so it'll show up in this section. But yeah, extremely useful. Buying too many, if you are going for this deck, you really only need one. It's only a recent change that I've been running 3 just for certain reasons. But yeah, don't waste all of your money on this card. If you want to pick up the deck, just run one of them. Running 3, I highly recommend.
If you can spring it, run 3, but the deck can function perfectly fine at 1. You just need to like supplement certain things in your deck to make sure it works well.
You know what? I'll just use this time to throw in a little tech option if you can't afford 3 of them.
Mystic Mon.
Because if you only have 1, no. Except that here. So you have 3 deck spots open. Now, there's a card in the extra deck that allows you to add it from deck to hand. This card, when summoned, usually frees up your main monster zones. Well, if you want, I don't run these because I use 3 copies of the field spell. You can run Sky Striker Mecha Eagle Booster. Chain it to your opponent's hand trap. Your Dinfint is what I call the card. You'll see what it is later. Is unaffected by your opponent's cards. Therefore, they have to waste either 2 hand traps to prevent you from getting to your island, or they just waste 1 and you're free to add it from deck to hand. So on a budget, 3 Eagle Booster can really replace the extra copies of Island. But yeah, aside from adding Island, they're relatively useless in the deck. So take with that as you will. You can use it, you cannot use it. Just depends on your preference.
Yeah, and if you were active in the Eternal format, dropping a Sky Striker card on your opponent is just catharsis or painful, and there's really no other option there.
It pretty much just tilts them for the rest of the match that they're seeing a Sky Striker card in 2021.
And as a Thunder Dragon player, trust me, I can confirm it does make you salty.
We have I Meet You, aka When I First Met You. Konami, please stop localizing completely valid names. This is another card from Lightning Overdrive, and it pretty much breaks this deck wide open along with the other cards that I've mentioned so far. To reveal 1 Cyberse monster with 2,300 attack, exactly 2,300, that's an important number, from your extra deck or hand, in order to add a level 4 or lower, add Ignister monster with that same attribute from your deck to your hand. I'm just going to briefly preview this. You'll see the main combo tomorrow, but basically, a Chi-Chi adds add Ignister monster, any AI spell or trap. So essentially, all of these cards function as your Stratos for the deck. So that's why you max out on 3 for all of these. They loop into each other. Picari into I Meet You into a Chi-Chi into Picari into I Meet You. I Meet You doesn't really loop as much on its own. It's kind of a shame that way. But you can do I Meet You into a Chi-Chi into Picari. But yeah, like, this card is insane, really useful for the deck. Run my favorite boy in the world, Fire Phoenix, that I'll show you later. But yeah, a definite 3 of, searches any monster in your deck.
And it's also a common. Like, everything that came out of Lightning Overdrive, with the exception of the Link 1, are commons, which means that as of recording this, they're like 10 to 20 cents, not including shipping. So, the field spell is something you can shift around and play around with because of budgetary reasons, but if you're building the deck, these are common and they're very inexpensive.
Yeah, I have no clue what Konami was thinking. It's the exact same printing rarity as it is in the OCG, which is a rare occurrence. But yeah, no clue why they made this a common. But they're Konami. They do what they want.
If the deck gets broken, then, they'll pay for it.
If the deck gets broken, they'll limit Island, and then we'll be forced to use Eagle Booster.
They'll either limit it or they'll straight up ban it.
If they ban Island, then the deck just dies completely. No one can run Ignisters anymore, and they really don't like doing that.
Mm-hmm. They did it to Thunder Dragon.
You guys can do so much stuff still without Colossus. Colossus doesn't define your boards. Alright, next up is a card that's extremely funny and only works if you run 3 copies of the field spell. Eye Contact. Essentially, if Ignister Island is in your field zone, over here, and you control another island in hand, reveal the island in hand, put it on the bottom of your deck. Pot of Greed is bad. This is Pot of Greed, +1, and you get to mulligan an extra island in hand. So yeah, being able to add a spell or trap from graveyard back to your hand, you can recycle this card, so it's really stupid.
Going, because you go -1 playing the card, but then you draw 3. The card is essentially a +2, not including any sort of card advantage you can gain off of the resources you draw from that. So at bare minimum, the card is a +2. At absolute maximum, it can just win you a game.
Definitely, for sure. Once again, only run it if you run 3 Island, though, because it's literally dead otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you are, it can be a really fun one-of. Searchable through Picari. Either way, just, it's useful, it serves its purposes, and it's funny.
Mm-hmm. Any card that says draw 3 is just fun to play, even if it's, not good.
So the next card is a card that, once again, some people run at 2. Run it at 3, but that's once again personal preference. You're more than okay running at 2. Here we have Idol Reborn. This is a quick play monster reborn for Ignister monsters, and that's basically all you need to know about it. Target and add Ignister monster in your grave, special summon it, and then if it's in your grave, you can banish it and 1 card from your hand to target one of your banished eye spells or traps, and then add it back to your hand. So essentially, you're mainly using it for just a free monster reborn. But if your island gets hit by a cosmic cyclone, you can go to the battle phase, banish this in a card from your hand to get your island back. And speaking of reborns, I also add in 1 regular monster reborn just for even more graveyard extension. Also, in the fall, we're going to get AI Fighting Spirit, which is a normal spell that's basically another Idol Reborn. So once Fighting Spirit comes out, run 2 Reborn and 1 Monster Reborn is probably the ratios I would go with.
Mm-hmm. Essentially just 4 Reborn.
The card I'm going to show is not good whatsoever. I only run this card because it's funny as hell to resolve, and can honestly, it does serve some purposes, it can get over Winda, it can get over Vanity's Ruler. This card is a quick play spell of the boy himself bonking you. During damage calculation, if your monster battles an opponent's monster, you can activate this card and your monster's attack becomes equal to your opponent's monster's attack. And if any monster is destroyed as a result of that battle, the controller of that monster takes damage equal to their monster's original attack. So say I attack a 1000 attack monster with a 100 attack monster, my opponent would take 1000 burn from that battle, I would take only 100. However, if this card is in your grave, and an Ad Ignister monster would be destroyed by battle, you can just banish it from your graveyard instead. So, you're staring into a Winda, you can just normal summon Picari, add Tie Strike from deck to hand, attack into Winda, use Tie Strike to protect your Picari and increase its attack, and then you can just combo off from there. So, extremely useful, extremely funny. In the first ever Remote Duel Extravaganza, back when Ignisters really weren't the best, I used this card to actually scrape off a win against Drytron by getting rid of their vanities, so It has helped me in quite a few games, so that's why I run it. I don't recommend it in a super competitive list. It's just a really funny card, and I'm always going to run one copy.
Especially if you're going for a more like fun casual duel, definitely run some, because in a fun casual setting it can do a lot of crazy shenanigans for you. But if you're taking it to like a YCS or like a regionals, maybe cut it to one at most.
I will say, sneak peek, I am actually going to be bringing, I think, this exact list. May do a few changes here and there, but to the YCS, so you may see an Ignister player hit you with tie strike, and if you do, I'm sorry. I have zero regrets. Have fun getting hurt.
You can't say I'm sorry, then follow it with I have zero regrets.
But alright. Those are the main AI and Ignister cards. The rest of the deck is pretty much just, aside from 3 Signet Mining, it's a Cyberse deck. You better run this card. If you don't, I'm sorry, you're not playing a Cyberse deck, right? There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
This does from Salamangreat being meta for so long, but if you don't, you can discard a card to add any level 4 or lower Cyberse monster from deck to hand. So you use this, add a Chi-Chi, use a Chi-Chi, add Picari, use Picari, add etc. It's just useful. You gotta run it.
And if
it just adds extra consistency.
And if you have it and Danmari in hand, you can literally pitch Danmari instead of getting to Baru and pitching it. So it can put
that's a good point, actually. Good Ignister player, whenever you draw Danmari, you'll also always draw Signet Mining. I've been doing a ton of test stands, and somehow that's always happened. So, yeah, definitely something that...
It's like a good Invoked player always has Invocation in hand.
The next card that I like to run is Called by the Grave. Don't know why it's at 1. Konami, please. Either give us Cross-Out Designator or put this back to 3. Stops your opponent's hand traps. It can be used to banish some cards. It's always funny if you banish an opponent's Eldritch with it and just cut off their access. Doesn't come up often, but can happen, and it's funny as hell. But yeah, everyone knows Called by the Grave, so I'm not going to even bother explaining what it does, but basically it helps insulate your Dinfin, insulate the rest of your plays. Definitely just run it if you're worried about hand traps messing up your combos. Speaking of hand traps, I run a wide sweep of hand traps in the main deck. I run 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Spell, and 2 Imperm. Essentially, I just want enough variety when dealing with my opponent's cards. Ash Blossom is pretty much never dead, so that's why it's at 3. Some decks don't do stuff in the graveyard, so that's why I only run 2. And also some decks don't use monster effects, so that's why I only run 2 Imperm. Now, the next card and the last card that I run in this deck, if you've been keeping count, is Cosmic Cyclone. The only reason I main deck this is so that I don't instantly lose to Mystic Mine, Zombie World, or Teekboo. There can only be one. Some people side this, and that's perfectly fine. It's probably better 2-side. I just don't want to be forced into games 2 and 3 against those types of decks by not running this.
And also, there are occasional decks, like if you're facing Eldritch, if you can banish an Eldritcher or a Golden Land at the right time, you can mess Eldritch up not super badly, but bad enough to where you can gain advantage.
It has a bad Virtual World hand. I've banished King Long using it, and they just have to pass turn. It does have other uses, but yeah, that's why I main deck it.
Yeah.
Out of the way, though, I can go ahead and move on to the extra deck, and then my current side deck, just for funsies. So I think I'm going to go through these and just level of where they're used in the combo, rather than in extra deck order, quote-unquote, just because, I don't know, that seems more fun. Or that you gotta run. Like, dear God, with Lightning Overdrive being out, this card needs to be run at very least 2. You can run 3. I'm not a fan of running 3, but at the very least you need to run 2. is the boy, the Dinfant, Dark Infant at Ignister. Konami, why did you print this card? This just breaks the deck completely. All it takes is one non-link ad Ignister monster. So you can even use Gashiri for it if you really want to. You shouldn't, but you can. If it's link summoned, you can add an Ignister Island from deck to hand. Link Striker Dragon. That's pretty much exactly what this card is, and oh my god, this is why you can get away with running Island at only one. This card is insane. Active with Eagle Booster if you're only running one island. Could be useful just for that alone, but its secondary effect is which I'll actually show in combos, is what breaks this card even more and why you run two and not just one. When a Cyberus monster with 2,300 original attack activate its effect, quick effect, you can move this card to your main monster zone this card points to. So, move. And then you can change its attribute. Normally, you change it to Divine just to be funny. But yeah, that card allows you to summon an extra monster with Dark Templar, which I'll get to in a bit, and it's just insane. Like, you gotta run this card. It's the one non-common from Lightning Overdrive, but it's only a super, so it shouldn't be that bad.
It is, from what I saw, last I checked, I think it was about $2 or $3 at its most expensive. With Lightning Overdrive dropping and the set becoming older, it should be less expensive than that. So it's going to be a very affordable card.
Yeah, and definitely cheaper than an extra copy of Island, because that's basically what this card is. Card you only sometimes summon, but can be useful. The boy, the myth, the legend, Lingeribo. Not Link Kuribo, Lingeribo, because this is the Ignister one and just works better. It takes one level 4 or lower Cyberus monster. Activates a trap card. Quick effect, you can tribute this card to negate the effect, and if you do, banish it. Banishing is what makes this card key, because you can use it to negate like a Scarlet Sanguine, banish it, it can't get it. Mostly banishing comes up against those.
Yeah, it's very good for trapping.
Is what I usually save it for. Has a graveyard effect. As a quick effect, you can tribute one ad Ignister monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, and then special summon Lingeribo back. So, say a duel against Cyber Dragon. So Cyber Dragon loves getting rid of monsters in the extra monster zone. Lingeribo in Grave, they were about to summon Mega Fleet, and I just tributed the Ignister in the extra monster zone to bring back Lingeribo, and their combo just ended there. It does have its uses from the graveyard. You don't use it often, but when you do, funny as hell. You'll see that's a common theme with some of my choices with this deck, the funny factor. I enjoy playing this deck just for fun, and it just happens to be competitive while doing so. And just, you'll have a lot of fun playing with this deck if you pick it up. Next up is the Baruru Searcher that really needs a rarity upgrade, Cyberus Wicked. It takes 2 Cyberus monsters, and this link summon card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. And also Cyberus monsters it points to cannot be destroyed by card effects. This was used in the old days to set up a Cyberus lock with Wicked, Cyberus Magician, and Cyberus Quantum Dragon. So if your combos get stopped, it's a funny card to end on, because your opponent physically cannot out it. But that's not the reason you run it. What you do is, if a monster is special summoned to a zone it points to, which is down or bottom right, you can banish one monster from your graveyard, and if you do, add a Cyberus Tuner from deck to hand. Baruru, this is why you only run one Baruru. The protection effect comes up sometimes, but normally you're just using this to summon Baruru and then you get it off field again. Next up is a card that I'm glad I pulled 2 of because I like to run it at 2. Splash Mage. The upgrade goes from the past. You were good for one thing at least. Link 2. Very shiny as well. It takes 2 Cyberus monsters, and you can target a Cyberus monster in your graveyard in defense position, but negate its effects. So, say, this is when I brought up where some monsters that special summon your Ignisters back negate their effects, but then if you synchro summon them off with Brewer, you can gain their effects back. This is one of the cards where that can apply. Mostly it's used to finish up your combos. Use the 2 monsters that you use for Wicked, summon this, summon another monster, then summon from Grave, and then you go into a boy that I'll show next, actually. And you turn those 3 monsters into the other card that really breaks Ignisters and has existed since the beginning. This boy right down here, Dark Templar. This card is a goddamn house. It takes 3 monsters with different names to summon, so that can be tricky in some decks, not tricky in our deck. If a monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, even during the damage step, you can special summon as many level 4 or lower Ignister monsters from your graveyard to zones it points to. So, remember earlier when I talked about Dark Infant being able to move itself? If Dark Templar is in your upper right extra monster zone and you special summon Dark Infant to the bottom left zone, activate Dark Templar, move Dark Infant over, and now you can summon 3 monsters to zones it points to instead of just 2. Dark Infant, not Dark Infant, well, Dark Infant is insanely good, but Dark Templar is insanely good. Brings back a ton of monsters from your grave with a ton of swarming. Has a secondary effect as well. If it destroys a monster from battle, you can special summon, is it Ignister? It's any Cybers monster from your grave, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use that effect often, so that's why I wasn't sure. But yeah, so if you don't use the effect earlier, that's why Dark Templar's first effect says even during the damage step, you can attack over an opponent's monster, special summon a monster back from your grave to a zone it points to, and special summon 2 more. It's insanely good card. You gotta run this card in your deck. You only need 1 because chances are if the first one doesn't work, then you're dead anyways. But yeah, definitely really good card for the deck. Much one of the core pieces of your combo. A few more links, but I'll get to those later. I'm going to move on to the synchros now. First of which is Cyber's Quantum Dragon. This is another level 7 Cyber Synchro, so it works with Brewer's effect. While you control a Link monster, monsters your opponent control cannot target monsters you control for attacks except this one. Also, your opponent cannot target monsters you control with card effects except this one. So essentially, you want to sit on a rival plus this, and then your opponent can't really out your rival until they get rid of this. Also, once per turn, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can return that opponent's monster to the hand. Also, this card can make a second attack in a row. This also applies if your opponent is attacking it, so it non-targeting bounces any card that attacks it. So it can out a Dragoon, it can out a Boral Sword, it can out an Access Code Talker. Insanely good card, insanely good synchro. You're gonna definitely want to run one of them.
It helps with
It's also pretty secret rare.
It's a gorgeous secret rare. It helps with creating locks against your opponent that just stops your opponent from being able to turn off your boards. It's just a fun removal piece, and also it can hit decently hard.
Yeah, 2500 attack is not something to scoff at.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other synchro you run, this little boy up here, good old Wind Pegasus at Ignister. Level 7 once again. This is also a generic synchro, so you can make this in other decks. I use it sometimes in Wind Witch combo lines, but in general, it's better within this archetype because during your main phase, you can destroy spells or traps your opponent controls up to the number of Ignister monsters you control. It's not a Harpy's Feather Duster, excuse me, Mystical Space Typhoon. At maximum, it can be a Harpy's Feather Duster. Insanely good spell and trap removal. It also has a graveyard effect that's pretty insane. If another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, so if they destroy one of your spells or traps, one of your monsters, while this card is in the grave, you can banish Wind Pegasus from your grave, and then target a card your opponent controls to shuffle it into the deck. You've got Duster on legs, and it just shuffles a card away. You only really want to run one because your extra deck is pretty tight, but it does have some really nice uses. And that rounds off the synchros. Next up we have the one boy that's not pictured on this amazing map, Light Dragon at Ignister. Xyz that requires just 2 level 4 monsters. So like I said, normally you make it with Picari and Doyon, but you can use Picari to make any other at Ignister level 4. Even Wind Pegasus, so you can use Wind Pegasus and Picari to make this if you really want to. If a monster you control would be destroyed by card effects, you can detach one material from this card instead. So, basic protection, really nice. You can also detach one material from this card during your main phase to destroy face-up monsters your opponent controls equal to the amount of at Ignister monsters you control. While Wind Pegasus is over here being Feather Duster, this one's over here being Raigeki. It also has a third effect, which is kind of insane that it has 3 effects. Doesn't come up often, but if you do, it really helps set up OTKs. If another Cyberus monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can just special summon another Link monster from grave. Say, I don't know, Wind Pegasus inflicts damage to your opponent by attacking over a monster. Light Dragon activates, special summons back Templar. Templar attacks another monster. And because it destroys a monster, you can special summon another monster back, and it just keeps going and going and going. So yeah, insanely good card. Once again, only really want to run one, but it does have some really nice uses when it comes up. The next card from the extra deck is a card that you never really summon, but you gotta run it still. It's my boy, the Fire Phoenix at Ignister. Basically, this is an Ignister monster in your extra deck with 2,300 attack and the fire attribute so that you can use it to add a Chi-Chi using I Meet You. That's the only reason you run it. To summon, I may as well go over what it actually does in case you do decide to summon it. During damage calculation, if this card attacks, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to this card's attack, and if you do, your opponent takes no battle damage from that battle. Monster with 3,000 defense using Fire Phoenix, your opponent takes 2,300 burn damage. Doesn't matter. Who cares about their defenses? You burn them. If this card is destroyed by card effect, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. So, slightly decent. Probably won't come up, but still can happen. During this next standby phase after this Blink Summon card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you special summon this card from your graveyard. That's why it has 2 side pointing arrows, because it just special summons itself back from the grave. There's a really funny OTK you can do with Fire Phoenix and a couple other cards, but you never really want to summon this. If you're summoning this card, your game's really at parity. Mainly just want to keep this so that you can add a Chi-Chi through I Meet You. Now the next card
It's a versatile
go
card,
ahead.
because I've seen you burn for like 9,600 before with that thing.
Yeah, it's funny as hell. I might show that tomorrow. I don't have that combo in this deck, but I can just demonstrate in case someone wants to make a deck around it.
It is a 9,600 burn in one turn, so...
But yeah, next card up can be used with I Meet You because it has 2,300 attack, but you never really do that. I think you all know what this card is. It's Transcode Talker. Used often if making access code, you can monster from your graveyard to a zone it points to, or I believe it's any monster, but I'm not sure. Essentially, you just use this as a way to get up into access code talker. This is why you run 2 Splash Mage. You use run during your regular combo, and then in future turns you can use a Splash Mage, summon a monster back, turn them into Transcode Talker, then use Splash Mage and Transcode to get into access code talker. The boy out gives you ops because Splash Mage is water, Transcode is earth. That's your main reason for running Transcode, just to get into access code talker, which really needs no explanation, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Island are probably the biggest price points from this deck, so you don't really have to run access code, but if you want to be competitive, you really need this card.
Access code is going to be your big money card here. Looking at the price right now, it's $115.
For sure. Oh god, that's gone up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've saved the best 2 cards from last, mostly the funniest ones. But I enjoy them the most. The first one is a card that a lot of people have been cutting from their lists, just to run other cards, which I completely understand, but still going to run it. It's Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid. Not regular Firewall Dragon, he is not good in this deck, don't run him. It takes 3+ effect monsters, so Transcode plus Splash Mage plus 1 other card, so you can use it during that same route. If this card is link summoned, you can place counters on this card equal to the number of different types of Cyberus monsters in your graveyard, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz. During the battle phase, this card gains 2,500 attack for each counter, so you Feather Duster them with Wind Pegasus, Raigeki them with Light Dragon, go to battle phase, this has 8,000 attack.
Mm-hmm.
So, just alone, that's the old way Ignister used to OTK. I still do that from time to time, I love it. But also, this acts as Apollosa. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can remove a counter to negate it. And cut it. It's not for everyone, really. I just really enjoy using it, just because it does come up relatively easily.
And also, if you watch Vrains and are a fan of the anime, it gives Dark Fluid a reason to be used. And also, max rarity Dark Fluid is really inexpensive. Secret rare from Chaos Impact is, I think, like $2 or $3. Yeah.
Really what you want to go for. You want to go for the prismatic secret rare. Am I lagging out again?
Nope. I'm just creating a mental drum roll without actually doing a physical drum roll.
Here is the legend, the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. The only Link 6 to exist in this game at the time of this video.
At the time of the recording, tomorrow they're going to reveal the Dark Magician Link 6.
If they do, I quit Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay, touche.
This is a Link 6 monster that requires only 3+ monsters, but they have to have different attributes. Earlier when I talked about changing Dark Infant to Divine attribute, this is why. Mm-hmm. You can only control 1 the Arrival, so you can't just load up with 3 on field, although that would be hilarious. The original attack of this card becomes 1,000 times the number of Link materials used for its Link summon. So usually it has 3,000 to 4,000 attack, but sometimes you can get it out with 6,000 if you really want to. It is completely unaffected by other cards' effects. This is your towers. Your opponent has to knock it over by battle. If they don't, boo-hoo, they can't get rid of it.
Ooh.
It also has an effect that comes up sometimes, but not super often. Once per turn, you can target 1 other monster on the field, destroy it, and if you do, special summon 1 Ignister token, Cybers, Dark, level 1, attack 0, defense 0, to your zone this card points to. So yeah, this is the big payoff for the deck. You sit on Arrival, your big Towers boy, with Dan Mari in Grave. This Towers becomes an Omni Negate. You just wait for your opponent to try to out it, because normally that 1 Omni Negate you can use to stop whatever card your opponent is using to try to get into a Boral Sword or an Actus Code Talker. But yeah, that rounds out the main deck and extra deck. So now I'm just going to do a quick run through of my side deck. Side deck is just whatever cards you think will work in the format. I'm just going to quickly go over the ones I have. I've got Droll, the alternate art gold rare, because I'm just like that. The 3rd Ghost Bell in case you need it. 3 Lancias. 3 Dark Rulers. We've got a Duster in case you need more spell and trap removal. We've got Evenly Matched. It's evenly matched. I only pulled 1, so that's the only reason why I'm only running 1. I don't want to pay extra for this card. Oh my god, that's way too much for me.
It is a little pricey.
We've also got the 3rd Imperm. We've got Link Spider. This allows you to turn a Nibiru token into a Cyberse Link monster that frees up your main monster zone so that you can keep comboing off. I don't main deck it because you never know when your opponent will Nibiru. This is usually what people replace Dark Fluid with in the main deck. This last card, I'm going to need to justify. have IQ. This is the one decent trap card in this deck. It's a continuous trap. Control an Ignister monster. It's an Ignister deck. You're going to be controlling Ignister monsters. Once per turn, during your standby phase, tribute one link monster or destroy this card. You'll normally just be destroying this card. The main reason you run this is because of the last effect. Each player can only link summon a monster once per turn while this card is face up on the field. You set up a rival, you set up your Omni to gain your grave. You search this at some point during your combo using Picari if you've got a good enough hand. And then if you're against a Dragon Link player, you flip up IQ and then watch their face just drop as they can't do their entire deck. In my side deck, it pretty much negates Dragon Link instantly.
It's a pretty dangerous.
You only need one because it is searchable for Picari. My side deck here.
Yeah, this deck, Ignister is going to be. I'm calling it right now. It's going to be meta. I will put my money on tier 1. I think with a towers that can become an Omni Negate with such like versatile playstyles like the Dark Fluid OTK, the Fire Phoenix Burn OTK. Like I don't think we've ever seen a deck that can OTK like FTK Burn like that. I know there was the like Razor's Edge like Wind or like Witch Nurse Burn deck that did a bunch of shenanigans, but this deck can do a lot of different things, so I think it is going to be tier 1. But we'll talk about combos tomorrow. Anything to say to the people before we cut this recording and go into combos?
Ignister best deck, let's go!
Okay, and well then, with that, I am going to hit stop recording and work. Yeah, okay. Guys, please don't be sleeping on Ignisters. The deck is insane. And yeah, I'll see you all next time.